anywhere. Okay, so here is what is coming up on the show today. Our best guess as to how conference realignment ends up, all right, including what I would do if I was each conference, each individual conference. What I would do, we will share that with you over the course of the show
Did you forget
today.
to brush the crumbs off your shirt?
Evidently, man, I got something on my shirt. I'm not sure how that happened, but yeah, you see that? I'm wearing the station flag today, and evidently something got on me at some point. Folks, to me, if you saw the U.S. women's national team's game last night or this morning, what you saw is a problem, and we'll diagnose the problem and how to get to it and what to make of it. That's coming your way at 3:40 p.m. this afternoon. We have got our ACC and SEC team preview series with an interesting one today. We've got Texas A&M, my buddy Josh Beard, joining us on the show. We've got a prediction of NFL division winners coming up on the show today. Who is going to win the divisions in the National Football League? We've got the top 5 at 5. We've got Can We Stop? And we've got you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. We've got you right here on Offsides, the Fan Upstate. You know, folks, one of the flaws of social media is the first thing you say, people act like it's the only thing you say, right? This forum allows us the chance to expound, to elaborate. But many, many times I've seen on social media, and this is one of the reasons why some of the platforms on social media are just, it's kind of a risk reward, that it doesn't really pan out. It doesn't really seem like the risk, that the reward outweighs the risk, right? But in many social media platforms, I've had a situation where you say 3 positive tweets, then you say but, and then what goes viral is the but, and no one ever sees the first of the 3 viral tweets. So one thing that I, maybe this is a flaw of me, I have no idea, but I have a total inability to do anything except see the big picture. That's what I do, right? When I was in Houston, I remember a newspaper writer, John Lopez. They had me, he was the full-time co-host of the midday show, right? The show is called In the Loop, and he was the full-time co-host of that show. And they had me sit in with him. And what he said to me, Diesel, was, Mark, this show is very macro. It's very macro. It's not micro. Yeah, I can't do that. Like I'm only able to see things by widening the lens. I hardly ever look at the micro. Okay, so perhaps that is a fault of my own. I have no idea, but I feel like it's led me very, very well in my life. I make big picture decisions, not small picture decisions. It's how I roll. It's what I do. I live in the macro, not the micro. No doubt about it. It's why I like macroeconomics so much better than microeconomics. So today, my friends, congratulations are in order to the South Carolina Gamecocks. The South Carolina Gamecocks today got a 5-star commitment from Dylan Stewart, who's a defensive end out of Washington, D.C., and that's a great get. There's no doubt about it. That is a great get. Is that a unique take that I have, that it's a great get? No. I think pretty much everyone would agree that when you land a top 15 player in America, that you done good. Beamer, you done good. I had a boss, whenever I made a big sale, he said, you get an extra chicken wing at the table tonight. Beamer gets an extra chicken wing at the table tonight. He done good. This is very, very good. Dylan Stewart chose the Gamecocks over Georgia and Ohio State. He's a guy that everybody wanted. Beamer and company did a hell of a job making inroads with this guy. And Beamer, the Marylands of the world and the Virginia Techs of the world should be ashamed of themselves for what they've allowed Beamer to do in and around the nation's capital. Nick Harbor, 5-star, Beamer got him. Dylan Stewart, 5-star, Beamer got him. right? All surrounding the nation's capital. And who knows how long Beamer's going to be able to put this wall up around Washington, D.C. But the ineptitude, right? The ineptitude of Maryland and Virginia Tech and a few other schools has allowed this to happen. Where is Penn State on a guy in Washington, D.C.? Why is Penn State not the first choice from a guy in Washington, D.C.? But credit to Beamer, he has consistently landed these guys from the nation's capital, and he's just simply doing what you have to do. Now, at SEC Media Days, Beamer said, our recruiting always begins in the state of South Carolina. And he is getting more of the upstates and more of the Palmetto States blue chip talent than is Dabo Swinney. Because Dabo Swinney realized, folks, quite some time ago that he can't really focus on the state of South Carolina if Clemson is going to achieve its goals. You know, it's interesting. I was cutting up some audio from our Cade Klubnik interview last week, and Cade Klubnik said, look, let's be honest. We won the ACC last year, had a great year, but our dreams are bigger at Clemson. You'll hear that in a promo that I'm making that is coming up. Do you guys realize that Clemson does not have a single commit from the state of South Carolina thus far in their class? We are now at a point, ladies and gentlemen, where the classes are about 2/3 done. My, has this landscape changed? Okay? Clemson has 17 commits out of a possible 25. That's 68% done. Florida has 21 commits out of a possible 25. That's 84% done. Conservatively, we are 2/3, 3/4 of the way done with the cycle. And South Carolina, my friends, got themselves a good one. There is no but to that statement. There absolutely is no but to that statement. What I do, my friends, is I look and I widen the lens and I look and see where we're at. And what we asked a week ago on the show, or was that 2 weeks ago on the show, Diesel, we said, when Beamer is all said and done, is he going to be closer to Spurrier or closer to Muschamp? We also leave open the possibility that Beamer could be better than Spurrier, right? Or worse than Muschamp. All possibilities are on the table. We think it's most likely that Beamer is going to be somewhat in between Muschamp and Spurrier. But we leave open the possibility that he could be better than Spurrier or worse than Muschamp. So it's unbelievable to me today, folks, that you post facts and people go berserk. You post like you don't even have a take. You just post facts.
Well, we've got John Edward Kruger saying continuing to compare Shane Beamer and Will Muschamp is stupid. Why, John? They were back-to-back coaches at the exact same university who have the same record through 2 seasons. You don't like the comparison because you don't like Will Muschamp. That's why it irks you and hundreds of other South Carolina Gamecock fans on Twitter. It irks you because you don't like Will Muschamp because he hurt you. Will Muschamp hurt you and hurt the program. And that's why you don't like the comparison. Otherwise, comparison is what we do. We all make comparisons every single day. John, when you go into a grocery store, you pick up an apple in your left hand, you pick up an apple in your right hand, and you say, which one of these two do I like? Is it fair to compare then? It's fair to compare. Like, why do South Carolina fans have such a problem with people comparing coaches who coached back-to-back tenures at the same university? That's totally on sides.
So, you know, what I like to do, Diesel, is I like to say, you know, things are never as good as they seem. Things are never as bad as they seem, right? I like to always give people a reality check. Gamecock fans are high on the hog today. They get the 5-star. I would post these results no matter what the results showed. I didn't know these results before I did the research this afternoon. I didn't know what these were going to say. I would have posted them no matter what, right? And so I said, okay, with Dylan Stewart, where does Shane Beamer stand recruiting-wise? Because we know, you know, in terms of the last 3 Gamecock coaches, we know he's well behind Spurrier. So where is he relative to Muschamp, right? And that is the question, folks. It's not that we are on the show here saying Muschamp is better than Beamer, although that's the way Brad Crawford tried to spin it a couple of weeks ago. Those guys, Mark and Diesel, said Muschamp is better than Beamer. No, it's never what we said. We asked the question, is Beamer going to be closer to Muschamp or closer to Spurrier? That's what we did. So given the fact that we got this huge news day today, I did some research for you. And I did some research, Diesel, because I know that to win the SEC, you've got to be top 3 in the SEC over a 4-year period. Okay, that motivated me here. And I'm like, wow, Beamer's getting some 5 stars. Let's see where South Carolina's at. Let's see how close they're getting to this number, right? You've got to average a top 3 class in the SEC. So among SEC teams, you got to be top 3 in the SEC to have a chance to win the league. Okay, and you got to do that over a 4-year period. So here we go, folks. All of Will Muschamp's classes at South Carolina, their rank in the SEC. Okay, 2016, Muschamp was 10th out of 14 teams. 2017, Muschamp was 8th out of 14 teams. 2018, Muschamp was 7th out of 14 teams. 2019, Muschamp was 8th out of 14 teams. And 2020, Muschamp was 8th out of 14 teams. Now let's look at Shane Beamer. 2021, Beamer was last out of 14 teams, 14 out of 14. 2022, Beamer was 10th out of 14 teams, 10 out of 14. 2023, Beamer was 7th out of 14. And in 2024, about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through the class, Beamer is 7th out of 14. If you include year 1 in the analysis, Muschamp's average ranking out of 14 teams in the SEC was 8.2 out of 14 teams. Including year 1, Beamer's rank out of 14 teams is 9.5. Not as good as Muschamp's. If you don't include year 1 because you say, look, it's not fair to count that year against Beamer, it's not fair to hold it against Muschamp, they're taking over messes of situations, right? If that's your point, fine, we'll remove them. Okay, we'll remove year 1. Muschamp's, among SEC teams, Muschamp's average class is 7.75 out of 14 teams, and Beamer's is 8 out of 14 teams in the SEC. Folks, I am not here to rain on your parade. It's unbelievable. You know, we learned this yesterday. You know, we are presenting firsthand testimony from 3 different military aviation officers on UFO discovery. And I don't buy it. Pics or it didn't happen. Well, here's the thing. I show you the pic. Then you say the pic was doctored. Okay? Like there's not, I mean, you got 3 different testimonies from military aviators. And now you're not buying it. You present fact today. You present fact, people go berserk. You present fact, people go nuts. Chris Phillips said to me, South Carolina gets a 5-star and this is your reaction? Yeah, because I want to see what the sum total of all of these recruiting experts, all of these recruiting efforts from Beamer have led to, Diesel. What is the sum total here? You landed a 5-star. Now let's look at the total picture. Oh, still not what Muschamp was doing. Oh, how did we end up here? How did this happen? Guys, rest assured, if or when Beamer passes Muschamp, okay, I'll be the first to tell you. And if or when Beamer rises 1 more spot in the SEC, I will say this class is in 6th place among SEC teams. That is a better finish than Muschamp ever had. But you know what the Gamecock fans do, Diesel? They like to pick and choose little nuggets that support their belief that we hate Muschamp and we love Beamer. Number 1, we love the blue chip ratio. Beamer hit it, Muschamp never did. Number 2, we love 5 stars. Beamer's getting a lot of them. Muschamp got fewer of them than Beamer. And what that is, folks, if we were talking about a track and field cross-country race or a track and field race, is what Gamecock fans are saying is We led more laps than the last guy, but did you finish higher? No.
The problem is Gamecock fans want to crown Shane Beamer. They want to crown Shane Beamer as the second coming of JC after 2 seasons. Give it time, guys. Give it time. That's all we're trying to say. We're trying to temper your expectations because your expectations are at an all-time fever pitch high. And you want to be told. You need to be told. There's something in your soul right now that needs to be told. Shane Beamer is the greatest coach in the SEC ever. And we're just saying, give it a little bit of time. Let it develop. There are certainly signs pointing to the fact or pointing to the supposition that Shane Beamer could be a top half of the SEC, top third of the SEC type of coach one day. But just relax a little bit. Like, you guys are like JoJo the Indian circus boy, waiting for your pretty new pet to come through the door. Slow down.
Do I know, Diesel, when I post this, that Gamecock fans are going to overreact, that Chris Phillips is going to overreact? Of course. But, folks, I'm always going to give you the big picture.
What is he saying? Does he offer a insult?
Don't even know what he's saying.
How's everybody
y'all
doing
are
today?
flipping out.
Oh, gosh, Diesel, it looks like we have triggered one John Edward Kruger. He's acting like Freddy Krueger in here today, Diesel. Look at this. The comments, other people are trying to get in on the comment line, and John will not even let them. John, you got an N on your report card for needs improvement in sharing, John. You are not even sharing the platform with anybody else, okay? Well, guys, we appreciate you. We love you guys taking part in this. Let's have some fun today on the show, shall we? Let's check on the text line 71307 and see what you guys are saying. Texter says, Mark, U of SC didn't win the recruiting battle for Dylan Stewart. They're just paying the kid more money. All of Beamer's crookedness, another texter says, will catch up with him. Just sit back and watch.
Ooh, bold statement there.
Yeah, it is. It is.
What is your theory on his crookedness there, texter? See, that's another problem we have in this country. You just say somebody's cheating, somebody's lying, somebody's crooked, somebody's doing untoward things, but you don't substantiate in any way, shape, or form. Texter, please. At least reveal your rumor. At least give us your supposition of what crooked Shane Beamer is doing. We want to know. Otherwise, you're just spouting off random stuff, hoping that we'll talk about it.
Do you see, Diesel, this little notification number? It just says 20 plus. That's as high as it goes. I expect it's going to be 20 plus over the duration of the show today. They got their good news. Mark hits them in the face with reality, and they don't want to live in reality today. Gamecock Mike says, Mark, I think you have to look at the trends. Top 7 in the last 2 years in Gamecock SEC recruiting, plus the recruiting season is not over. Thanks, Gamecock Mike. Gamecock Mike, thanks for the text. Like, I appreciate that. I value that, right? I know you got the top 7 in the SEC from what I just shared with you. Will Muschamp finished top 7 in the SEC. Will Muschamp's last 4 years in the SEC. He was 8th, 7th, 8th, and 8th in the SEC. Okay? Beamer's last 3 years, he's been 10th, 7th, and 7th. You average those 3 together, and Muschamp slightly narrows them out. Now, I realize you love one guy, and you hate the other guy. I get that. But the reality is, folks, there are a lot of incredibly striking similarities here. Incredibly striking similarities. And people just don't like when you post facts. If you're a Gamecock fan, you would rather say he's got more 5 stars. He's got more blue chips. Yeah, but how did the race end? Okay, let's do the cross-country meet analogy. You guys led a higher percentage of the time. That's great. How did the race end? Oh, you didn't finish as high as you did before. Yeah, but you led longer and you had more second-place finishers. But what was the end result? Oh, you didn't finish as highly.
It's like touting that you were leading at the end of the third quarter more than you weren't, or more than the previous guy did. It's a stat that doesn't matter.
We led more quarters, Diesel, than the previous coach. Who had a better record? Oh, the previous coach.
Yeah, but how many end of game fourth quarters did you lead? That's what matters.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
what matters.
Yeah, guys, look, I'll post the data when the data changes. That's what we do. You know, everyone always wants to say, but you said, no, I've said we don't know if Beamer is going to be the equal of Spurrier or below Spurrier. We don't know if he's going to be the equal of Muschamp or below Muschamp.
Also, also to this texter who says you got to look at the trends, top 7 the last 2 years. Once is an occurrence, twice is a coincidence, 3 times is a trend. 2 data points does not a trend make, texter.
Yeah, and Beamer's doing some really, really good things. But guys, he's actually below Muschamp. He's not even with Muschamp. He's a tad below Muschamp. And he's certainly not markedly better than Muschamp recruiting was. And that last point is one that Brad Crawford agreed with when he came on the show. Like, we've got the clip, Diesel. You know, we can pull it up. I said he's not been markedly better, and Brad Crawford says agreed. Says agreed. We have the data. We have the audio clip, right? So is he a better coach than Muschamp? I think so. Time will tell. We'll have fun as time rolls on, and I'll post the data any way, shape, or form. You know, you guys act like you want to hold people to something they said on August 1st, 2023. We are always evolving our positions as the data, my friends, comes in. We're always doing that. We'll keep it right here on Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, Gamecock fans in a tizzy when you present them with facts. They do not like facts down there in Columbia. Sorry. That's what you're going to get here. It's Offsides, the Fan Upstate.
Looking at our blue star messages on the YouTube chat. We call them blue stars, Mark, because when you click the star button to say this is an important message, it's a blue star. So we're going to go with it. And, the Fan Upstate colors are blue. Here is our CBS Sports Radio affiliation. Shadow of Death Valley says, have you heard from Brad Crawford's attorney / psychoanalyst yet? Shadow of Death Valley, you're trying to get us in trouble, man. We know what you're trying to do.
Shadow, here's what I need you to do, buddy. Here's what I need you to do. Shadow, get with Johnny Carrots, okay? And me, you, and Johnny are going to grab breakfast someday real soon, okay? Diesel is more than welcome to come over as well if he'd like. But Shadow of Death Valley, get with Johnny Carrots. Let's set a day. You guys coordinate, and if you have a day that it works for you guys, I'll do my best to make it work.
Yep.
Appreciate your unbiased, always unbiased counterpoints, though, Shadow.
Madcraft says that texter, he's referring to the texter who said that Shane Beamer's methods are crooked, says that texter is wrong. Nothing about Beamer screams crooked behavior. Thank you, Madcraft. Like, we haven't seen anything to this point. To my knowledge, Mark, have you seen any allegations, accusations of any kind whatsoever about Shane Beamer's methods?
Zero.
There you go. Yeah, there's a lot of people who just fling stuff against the wall to see what sticks. We're not going to let that happen here on this show. Thank you, Madcraft, for calling the guy out. Dan B says, Gamecock fans losing their minds today. Way to go, Mark. LOL.
Look, Dan, I just don't know what people want you to do. Like they think I'm just trying to shove their face in it. They think this is a take. It's fact. I'm just posting fact. If the facts were pro-Beamer, I would still post them. You see what I'm saying? They're all like high and mighty, and they've gotten nothing in the recruiting in recruiting commitments the last few months, or very little. A 3-star here or there. And then today they get this big, commitment, and they think it's like this earth-shattering thing, and it's really moved the needle barely at all. Like almost nothing has changed here, guys. And so, congratulations on your recruit. What Beamer's doing in D.C. is hella impressive. Shame on Penn State. Shame on Maryland. Shame on Virginia Tech for not doing a better job in the nation's capital, one of the top 5 or 6 markets in the country, and allowing Beamer to do what he's doing there. Okay, but congratulations. Let's not lose sight of the big picture, please. Let's see here. Texter says, I think Beamer will be successful, but if you're not a logical fan, then you're setting yourself up for pain and suffering. So says Madcraft. So maybe, Texter says, Will Muschamp was a pretty good recruiter, but not good at getting the results on the field. I know Beamer beat 2 top 10 teams. Let me see here. I'm trying to scroll back here. I know Beamer beat top 10 teams and beat Clemson in 2 years, something that Will Muschamp do in his tenure at South Carolina. Texter, that is true. But Will Muschamp beat Georgia, right? He did. That happened the first year I was here. Has Beamer beaten Georgia? No. There's a laundry list of things that you can give me that Beamer has done that Muschamp hasn't. And there's a list of things that Muschamp has done that Beamer hasn't. Texter says, Mark, 21's recruiting class was more on Tanner and Will Muschamp than Beamer. Bringing back a lame duck coach that everyone knew was leaving. All right. When he only won 2 games his last season and only 6 in his last 2 seasons. I don't mind you guys being realistic, but I was hoping as a Gamecock fan, you guys were going to be more SC friendly. Us South Carolina fans have nowhere else to go. Texter, we're giving you reality. What do you mean we're not being friendly? We're giving you reality. And when I posted that tweet, Texter, that you can see at Mark Ryan on Air, I posted those stats, both including the 2021 season and removing the 2021 season. So, I've got the stats for you. What do you mean? When did posting facts become being mean? How is that not South Carolina friendly? I don't get it.
You're not telling them how great they are, Mark. That's the problem. Something good happens to them, and you're not dropping everything you do and all of your internal logic and saying, guys, you're incredible. Everything's going to be great. You're going to the playoff this year. Like, that's what Homer Radio does, Texter. This is not Homer Radio.
Texter says, you guys are cracking me up with this comparison. Everyone knows you don't really believe that Beamer is not a better head ball coach than Muschamp. I understand the conversation starter, but I know you don't believe what you're insinuating. It does feel good for the Gamecocks to be relevant enough to discuss again, though.
We got Professor Xavier in the audience, Mark. Somebody with a little helmet he can put on and see directly into your mind.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Shannon, look, man.
Make a fortune with this
you
technology.
Know, like, what I do is I set people straight. Gamecock fans are in a tizzy today. I set you straight. Here's the reality. You got Dylan Stewart. Congratulations. Still behind Muschamp. Still behind him. Again, this relates to the question, is Beamer going to be closer to Muschamp or closer to Spurrier when all is said and done? The difference, Texter says, between Muschamp and Beamer is the likable guy that everyone wants or Gamecock fans need to succeed. Muschamp was a guy that could recruit them but not coach up his talent. Just an opinion. Yeah, well, we'll see if Beamer can coach up the talent. We will soon see. You know, like, we have evidently entered an era, guys, where posting fact means you're hating. Luke, great job, Luke. Favorite text of the day thus far. He says, I popped into Smith & James earlier today to get some bow ties. Told them you said hi. Luke, thank you so very, very much for doing that. Did you swing by the Greenville or the Greer store? Thanks for doing that, Luke. People always say, what's the number one thing you can do to help the show? Support our sponsors. Support our sponsors. When you use them, when you go to Smith & James or Ingles, or you sign up for the Power Club at Mr. Sparky, let them know that you got to them from us. Okay, that's the best thing you can do. Mark, recruiting was never a Will Muschamp issue. Look at how many high-profile players he put into the league. The issue was translating that talent into W's. A fair comparison is that Will Muschamp's last 3 seasons were comparable to Beamer's. Beamer's first 3 wins and loss-wise. Well, we'll see, Texter. We'll see. If Beamer drops a 7-6 this year, he'll have the same record as Muschamp through 3 years. Okay? Through 3. So, at some point, to actually be better than Muschamp, you can't give me a stat like blue chip ratio or like more 5 stars, which Diesel and I have equated to you led in basketball after the 3rd quarter. You led more laps in a track and field race. No. What's the final result? What's the final result? Okay?
I just had a light bulb moment,
Yeah.
Mark, and this is slightly off topic here, but I'm surprised that Gamecock fans who hate Will Muschamp as much as they do have not taken to calling him Bust Champ. Like, you call him Muschamp, and that's a good one. I like it. But Bust Champ would also work because he was a bust as a head coach at 2 schools.
Texter says, Shadow Bust Champ. I like it. I like it, Diesel. What do you guys think? Bust Champ? Is that change you can believe in? Texter says, Shadow of Death Valley is pulling the same thing you did after your loss to South Carolina, disappearing act. Same thing I did, Texter. When Florida lost to South Carolina, I got on a live Twitter feed immediately after that. What was the app that Twitter used to use, Diesel, to go live? Periscope. I got on a live Periscope the moment Florida lost to South Carolina to take the arrows. What do you mean I disappeared? I have nowhere to disappear to. Okay? Texter says recruiting doesn't win games. Texter says it's not about being friendly. Both Diesel and yourself are making it sound like if there's nothing to be excited about. Now, what do you mean making it sound like? If we got a 5-star player at Florida, I'd be really excited. You guys have every right to be excited. But all I see, Texter, when I go to my Twitter feed today, and you're damn right I'm still calling it Twitter. Elon Musk can kiss my backside, but I'm still calling it Twitter. The reality is when I go there today, all I'm seeing is Beamer this, more 5 stars than Muschamp, Dylan Stewart, Georgia and Ohio State wanted him. And it's up to me to be real with you. You know when you watch the Weather Channel during a tropical storm and they're trying to scare the daylights out of you, oh my God, this is going to be brutal. Then you see a guy walking right by the weatherman that's falling off of the set, walking his 2-pound poodle with no problem right behind the weatherman. That's what's called the dose of reality. I'm giving you the dose of reality because all I'm seeing is sensationalism. That's it. Gamecock fans, when Beamer exceeds Muschamp, I'll be the first to tell you, okay? But wins and loss-wise, he hasn't. Recruiting-wise, he hasn't. Them's the facts. Don't be mad at the facts, ladies and gentlemen. Don't be mad.
Blue Star message, Mark. Again, everybody knows that is now what we call messages that are starable. The great messages that come in on our YouTube thread at the Fan Upstate, by the way, is where you can go and subscribe to the Fan Upstate on YouTube and get into this chat, man, because this is a lot of fun. Shadow of Death Valley says, Crying Shane telling everybody how his phone was blowing up about his open OC position and then winding up with Dowell Loggins was a landmark coaching moment in my unbiased opinion. Spur Daddy says, what's up, fellas? I usually agree with Mark, but I think it's time to nip this comparison in the bud. Nip it in the bud. Carolina just landed one of its highest recruiting commits in school history. Let's discuss that. Spur Daddy, we already did. Spur Daddy also says, Old Shadow wants to talk about Crying Shane when your coach has been one of the biggest crybabies in college football.
Yeah, Diesel, Muschamp landed Jordan Birch, one of the highest recruits in Gamecock football history. Similarly regarded as Jadeveon Clowney when he was coming out of high school. Spur Daddy, what we're not doing is saying Beamer is Muschamp. What we are doing is saying, look, for all of the flowers and mints that Gamecock fans are floating out here, let's look at the actual data. Okay? Is Beamer Muschamp? Is Beamer Spurrier? And then understanding that time is going to give us that answer is very exciting to us, right? Very exciting to us. There's no harm in looking at where you are. Okay? There's no harm in that. I don't like living in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. I like looking at, okay, we got a great 5-star commitment today. Congratulations. Now where are we at? Crap, still below Muschamp. Okay, we still got work to do. There's nothing wrong with that, ladies and gentlemen. I just don't believe in living in this Shangri-La BS land that apparently a lot of fan bases want to exist in.
Texter says, Mark, I understand why you're comparing Muschamp's first 3 seasons, but a fair comparison is Will Muschamp's last 3 and Beamer's first 3. Why, Texter? Is that so you can cherry pick data that you like better? Because that's what it sounds like you're trying to do. Why can't you compare somebody's first 3 seasons at a university? Same school, same conference, same relative empty cupboard that they both inherited on their way in. I'd say that is the most fair comparison to compare the first 3. Now, what Shane Beamer is doing, I think, is a little more impressive because he's doing it without head coaching experience. And I think that is surely a feather in the cap. But Texter, we're not going to allow you to cherry pick the data that you like because it says what you want it to say. We're not going to let you do that.
Guys, let's have the moment where I'm totally honest with you, okay? Because this will not go viral on social media the way my posting of fact will, okay? Who would I choose if I'm Ray Tanner to be head coach of the Gamecocks, Beamer or Muschamp? Beamer, okay? Scale of 1 to 10, Spurrier, Beamer, and Muschamp. What score do each get? Based on what I've seen, Spurrier has to be a 10 because he represents the best that the program has ever accomplished. So Spurrier is a 10, Beamer would be a 7, and Muschamp would be a 4. Okay, based on what I've seen thus far. That said, year 3 is almost always the case, almost always the time where the cream separates from the chaff, where the good coaches elevate themselves and take that next step forward. It's almost always that case. So that's why I say Beamer's got pressure on him this year. He's not on the hot seat, but he's got pressure because it almost always happens in year 3. Are you guys following me on that? In other words, this year, Beamer's either going to show himself to be a 7, show himself to be better than a 7, or show himself to be closer than Muschamp. There's pressure this year.
The only thing that confuses me that I want to clarify is the cream separates from the crop and the wheat separates from the chaff.
Oh,
You said we got to separate the cream from the chaff.
thank you, Diesel. That's one of those sayings I never get right. I never get right.
You also have to separate the awkwardly feminine from the possibly Canadian.
I don't get that one.
That's from Dodgeball.
Okay, I got you. All right, guys, 844-FAN phone. That's 844-326-3663. Guys, like, you like us because we're different. You like us because on a day where everyone is blowing smoke and Gamecock beaks up your backside, we are giving you the honest truth. You want the truth, you can't handle the truth. That's what we're doing here today.
Hey, we got a celebrity appearance. We got Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show in the YouTube thread. That's awesome. Thanks for joining the show today.
Let's see here. You fall back. I'm just stating facts. Sure, but you're smarter than that, Mark. I'm fascinated to hear your full perspective on this. Thursday, I didn't react to your tweet in the slightest. I gave you my take on your take and more. Spurs Up Show. Chris, is this really him?
A take is a reaction.
I mean, is that his? Is that really who that is?
I assume.
Chris Phillips. I didn't leave a take.
Tell us something that only Chris Phillips would know so we can confirm that it's you.
Chris, there was no take there. I just listed facts. There was no take. You shouldn't be surprised that it was my take. I didn't have a take. It was just fact. You know? What do you mean surprised that that was your take? There is no take. You know, the takes that you've been seeing all day are Beamer landed a 5-star. Good job. Congratulations. Right? But I'm not going to live in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. I'm not going to live in the land of flowers and mints.
I don't want to live in Rainbow Land, and you can't make me.
No, we're going to look at reality, man. Come on. So 71307 on the text line is where you guys can get to us. Please do text your takes into the show, and happy to get to it. Folks, let's establish that a fact is not a take, okay? That a fact is not a reaction. Posting facts, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, and the reason why this is going viral is because it's a statistical analysis that nobody else had, that nobody else came out with, and you don't like what it says. Sorry, not sorry. Offsides continues right after this, the Fan Upstate. So yesterday, the question was, help me out here, Diesel, was what's
a false narrative that your rival always pushes?
Right.
To
And
be a
so,
positive thing about themselves or a negative thing about your school.
yeah, what false narrative does your rival always push? Well, what we've learned here in this first hour is that the false narrative is that Beamer has outproduced Muschamp in wins and losses, that Beamer is better than Muschamp in what matters most. That is the false narrative that Gamecock fans are sunshine pumping, because up until this point, the results aren't there. Now, you've heard me say I think Beamer's going to be better than Muschamp, but he's not better than Muschamp now in the areas that matter most. Same record, slightly worse recruiting. Folks, never be mad at the person spewing facts. Never be mad at the person spewing facts. Back with hour number 2 of the most interactive sports talk show anywhere right after this. Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, the fan upstate. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. Know you guys have a ton of sports media options out there. Truly do appreciate you making us your number one choice in the afternoons here in upstate South Carolina. Thank you guys so much for that. Little programming note, we've got a CBS show coming up this Saturday as well, so that'll be airing also right here on the Fan Upstate and across this great nation. We'll be on from noon to 5 p.m. Eastern Time this Saturday. So we get a lot of great crossover feedback. The local audience tunes into the national show. Now we've got national audience members turning into the local show. Love to see it. Love to see it, guys. We appreciate you so much. You guys can take part by giving us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. And great to see all you folks on YouTube. Open your YouTube app, the Fan Upstate. We are right there on YouTube for you. So joining us right now is a really good dude in the sports media verse. He's also really into gaming. Was a fantastic showmate when I was in Houston, Texas at Sports Radio 610, both as a host and as a producer. Had a lot of fun with him. Josh Beard joins us right now on the show. Josh, were you producing the night that Tillman Fertitta called in to bash me about the Lane Kiffin thing?
Absolutely. Yes, I was. That's a story I still tell people.
Can you tell the story to our audience here? Because most of these people don't know. What was that about? Bring us into that.
So that it wasn't the first time Tillman Fertitta had called into the show, right? So you were filling in for Paul, and we had already had Tillman on the show once before because Paul was bashing him about something. And so I wasn't surprised when I saw the number come in. I'm like, oh no, not again. So Tillman calls and I answer. I said, hey, Mr. Fertitta, what's going on? And he said, get me on the air to talk to that guy. He didn't know what he's talking about. I want to get on and talk to him. So I'm like, yeah, of course.
Well, can you tell Josh, can you tell our audience who Tillman Fertitta is? He's basically Houston's Mark Cuban.
Yeah, he is Houston's Mark Cuban. I started off with he is he owns a huge restaurant chain. He's a massive benefactor for the University of Houston. They built the entire basketball arena. It's called the Fertitta Center. And then he is now the owner of the Houston Rockets. So he is essentially Mr. Houston himself, or at least wants to be called Mr. Houston, probably most likely, and is the owner of the Rockets and does a lot of really great stuff in town and a lot of great sports stuff. But he doesn't really like being called out a lot. He doesn't like being questioned on his decisions. So
Diesel, he hired Major Applewhite to coach Houston instead of Lane Kiffin, and I put him on blast for doing that. I think
it was a great choice. I disagree. I think it was an amazing choice. It was great content.
Oh yeah.
As a producer, I loved it.
Yeah. It was a good choice. But Josh, I remember you saying to me, Mark, do you want to have him on? Like, Mark, he's going to light you on fire. And I remember being like, yeah, man, let's bring it on. Let's do it. This is great. Let's hear what he has to say. And the way you packaged that, Josh, became the number one in engagement. It was the number one link on foxsports.com the next day, the way you packaged that. So thank you so much for doing that, brother. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. It's almost like I'm a god at what I do.
There you go, buddy. There you go. So we're talking Texas A&M, talking Aggies today with you. And my question to you, Josh, is I've said to Gamecock fans here that I believe Shane Beamer is under pressure. He's not on the hot seat in any way, shape, or form, but he's under pressure. Why? Mm-hmm. Because he's got the same record as Muschamp through 2 years at South Carolina, but the narrative is so much more positive. I think the warm fuzzies start to wear off after year 3 if you don't take the next step. All right. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the data, Will Muschamp has the same record as Beamer through 2 years and slightly better recruiting than Beamer through 2 or 3 classes. Unfortunately for Fisher, Jimbo Fisher, in College Station, the numbers, the side-by-side between him and Kevin Sumlin are not overly favorable for Jimbo Fisher. So my question is, Josh, is Jimbo Fisher on pressure or is he on the hot seat?
Both. I can't even explain the amount of pressure that has been created because of how hot his seat is.
Wow.
I mean, last year I was hearing rumblings of alumni at A&M trying to raise money to buy Jimbo Fisher out of his contract. This guy couldn't be on any hotter of a seat. I think he might have the hottest seat in all of college football this year, and it's a large reason why Jimbo Fisher, who we've known wherever he's been, whenever he's been at Florida State, at Texas A&M, wherever he's been, he has been the one to call plays. And for one of the first times ever, Bobby Petrino comes in. He's going to be the offensive coordinator. He's going to be calling the offensive plays to start the season. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that alumni fans were not happy with the way the offense was run under Jimbo Fisher the last couple of seasons. We had to sit through the Zach Galzada era of football. They didn't really make a true decision on the quarterback last year after Max Johnson transferred. He gets hurt, and then Connor Wigman comes in and has a kind of lackluster season. And it's tough to watch when you talk about the amount of talent that the Aggies have at some of their skill positions with names like Evan Stewart, Moose Muhammad, Anaya Smith before he got hurt. And you have all of these names that are in there that are coming back again this year. There's a lot of expectation there, right? And you have some people leave. You have some new guys coming in at running back with Amari Daniels and Le'Veon Moss. Those are going to be the guys that are going to be the 1-2 punch at the running back position. The expectation, even though it hasn't been fully officially announced yet, the expectation is that Wagman's going to be the quarterback as a true sophomore. And so he is on a very hot seat with a lot of talent on that offensive side of the ball. And he's had to pull back from those play calling duties. So it's going to be interesting to see how this offense runs, how this team runs with Bobby Petrino now at that offensive coordinator position, the guy that's calling the shots in the offense. How does he work with this young quarterback? How does he work with these new running backs and some of this talent that they have at wide receiver? I do think if you look at Moose Muhammad, Anaya Smith, and Evan Stewart, they have one of the stronger wide receiver cores in the SEC, probably one of the stronger wide receiving cores in all of college football. So if they don't put it together this year, and even with bringing Petrino in and seeing what he can do with that offense, if they don't put it together this year, it's going to be interesting to see where Jimbo Fisher stands at season's end with the Aggies, with the Aggie alumni, and the Texas A&M fan base in general.
Josh Beard joins Offsides to preview Texas A&M. Josh, when the seat is this hot, standards tend to go up, making it harder to achieve them, then coming down to make those standards easier to achieve. So what is the standard A to save Jimbo's job, and what is the standard to appease the fans and kind of make them feel a little bit better?
Well, I mean, it's hard to tell because the expectations in the last couple of years, with coming off of the number one recruiting classes a couple of years ago, and then you've spent the last two seasons being pretty highly ranked in the top 10 in one of those seasons, and then all of a sudden you put up a huge stinker of a year. It's hard to say what that expectation is going to be. I don't think it's going to be enough to really just go out there and like make a bowl game with them missing the bowl eligibility last year. That's not enough. I think this fan base really needs to see Jimbo Fisher and this Aggie team with all of the talent that they've got. I know there's some turnover. We all know that they're a little young on the defense, but they've got to see them put some of these teams to a test in the SEC. And I think that they have to be in consideration for the college football playoff for at least the fan base and a lot of the alumni to be satisfied. I think he can still continue to somehow ride that hot seat for another season if they only lose like 2, maybe 3 games. They're kind of teetering in that top 25. They're ranked, but then they might lose a tough matchup against a good team. If he somehow finds a way to just lose against Alabama and lose these really, really tough matchups by maybe a touchdown or less, and he still has a decent record, then somehow he's going to survive. But if they have another year where they don't even look like they can compete with some of the top teams, and they lose a couple of games or even just a game that should be absolute wins on that schedule, then it's going to be really, really tough for him to recover from.
So the Athlon College Football Preview magazine, Josh, that I'm looking at says that they're the 20th best team in America, 3rd in the SEC West. They'll be 8-4. 4-4 in the SEC. Is Jimbo Fisher back with that record?
Whew, it's tough because his contract is so huge, right? And it's 1 year gone. Maybe it's a little bit more feasible for some funds to be raised to have that contract bought out. 8-4 is going to be tough for this fan base to live with. It really will be. I think the expectations are just too high, and a lot of that has just been a snowball effect from the last 2 years. Those expectations from 2 years ago, the expectations from last year, they've just snowballed into this situation where I just don't think 8-4 is good enough. I think they have to exceed those expectations. They have to be better than people expect because they just spent the last 2 years being pretty markedly worse than what people thought they would be. And so they have to beat those expectations for Jimbo Fisher to at least be comfortable enough that he's going to get another year.
Also, so what do you expect them to be, Josh? You know, like it's really hard to figure that out, right? And I get a sense when I look at the variation between the analytics people and the different magazines that not a lot of people have a real feel for what this team is going to be. 5-7 last year, obviously have to be much better than that. But what is your hunch for the actual results?
I could see that. I think in best case scenario, absolute best case scenario, I think they're more. I think they'll be better than that 8-4 record. I really do. I think we could see something like a 9-3. That if my gut, here's the problem. Do you want Josh's heart or do you want Josh's head? Because Josh's heart says that they're going to go 11-1. They're going to lose to Alabama. They're going to be highly ranked. It's going to be fun. But Josh's head says, no, I don't trust Jimbo Fisher. I think that if they do win, they're going to win in spite of him. They're going to win because Bobby Petrino comes in and installs an offense that just makes sense for these players. Somebody who isn't as rigid in the past, somebody who's willing to kind of change to today's game and change the way that offense is run a little bit more like Petrino is and Jimbo is not. And so there are two competing sides to me. I'm going to bring them together, and I'm going to say I think it's going to be like a 9-3 season, 10-2, if at best case scenario 10-2, where they win one they're not supposed to, they lose a couple that they are supposed to lose, and then they're right there in that conversation of one of the top teams. But very clearly, I do not think that they're going to be a team that can really compete for the college football playoff and compete for a national championship. But I do think that would be good enough for Jimbo Fisher to save, at least give himself another year to see what they can do with that offense moving forward.
Now, Josh, with the gargantuan contract that Jimbo Fisher received and the
massive.
less
Can
than
I just have a tenth of his contract, please? Can somebody just give me that?
with the size of that contract and the less than stellar results they've gotten from him and from Sumlin before him, is A&M going to learn their lesson with contracts, or are we going to see them offer the next guy another massive, ridiculous deal?
No, they'll never learn their lesson. I love this school. I love cheering for this school. I love being a part of this fan base. But if there is one thing I know, it is that it's a stubborn fan base full of stubborn alumni and a stubborn school that will never change their stripes. They will continue to make these bad decisions over and over and over again. And very few of us are going to stand on the outside going, we probably shouldn't do that. And they're going to tell us to shut up and walk away and go sit in the corner and color.
Josh, what's the state of that all everything greatest recruiting class of all time from last year? How many of them are still around?
It's not great. It's I think from transfers and people who were just indefinitely removed from the team, I think it's down a good, off the top of my head, 25 to 30%. They lost a pretty decent chunk, maybe a little bit less than that, but a pretty decent chunk of that recruiting class. A couple of higher recruits, but I think most of the guys that they lost from that class aren't really the top end guys who didn't get in trouble from that recruiting class that they had. The ones who were considered those top end recruits are the ones who just didn't fit with the culture with Jimbo Fisher. They're the ones who are doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing. A lot of that, you could say they came to the school for maybe not the right reasons. That's why they were doing the things that they were doing. That 12th man fund is pretty influential, but they've already been warned about having the 12th man fund. But I think for the most part, a lot of the guys who are super talented, who wanted to come to the team, they're still there and they're still making noise. And a lot of the guys who left are guys who were in competitions with a lot of talent. They just didn't want to have to deal with the competition, so they went elsewhere. So I think it's pretty well intact for the most part.
Josh Beard joining us here on Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Josh, the Longhorns being in the league now, to Aggies fans, a net positive or net negative?
To Aggie fans, again, there's two sides to this. To Aggie fans that don't know what they're talking about, it's going to be a net negative for them. But Aggie fans, I think, look, if you're somebody who's on the outside looking in, or if you're somebody who's old school Aggie UT rivalry, we may not love them. We may have to argue. My brother and I are going to get in so many fights again because he went to UT, I went to A&M. It's going to cause a lot of problems for whoever's team wins and whoever's team loses every single year. But I do think it's a net positive. I think getting this rivalry back, getting those games against Texas back, I think it's going to be huge for the state of Texas. It's going to be huge for football in Texas. I just really, really don't want my team to be on the wrong side of that, as they have mostly been throughout the history of the rivalry between those two teams. But I do think it's a net positive. I think it's a net positive for college football, and I think it's a net positive for both teams, for the SEC and for football in Texas in general.
What are the expectations for the quarterback position this year?
Be good. That's it. I mean, that's it. Like, get the ball to where it needs to go. We've had since Johnny Manziel, we've had so many different quarterbacks who just weren't quite exactly what we needed them to be. They were okay, but they weren't good enough. And I think this year, when you talk about a guy like Connor Weigman, he comes out of Bridgeland High School a couple of years ago. I got to see him play. I lived 10 minutes from where he played high school football. I got to watch him a lot. He's got a lot of talent. When you talk about his ability to run, his ability to throw, his ability to process, it's all there. He just needed somebody who could help him put it together and build an offense around him. I do not think Jimbo Fisher was that guy. I'm very excited to see how he does in Bobby Petrino's offense and in that Petrino system. Seeing somebody who can actually take Weigman and mold that offense with all this talent around him and his skill set is going to be a lot of fun to watch. But really, it's be consistent, get the ball where it needs to go. Don't throw turnovers. That's all I want. Super low expectations. It's pretty much like the expectations that my wife has for me. Just please do the dishes sometimes. Don't annoy me too much and help me with the laundry. That's it. Like, that's what I have for Connor Weigman. It's the same thing, but football-wise.
There you go. Josh, I'd be remiss if I did not ask you about the breaking news over the last 30 to 60 minutes. The Astros getting Justin Verlander back, it appears.
Yeah.
Went to counter what the Texas Rangers have been doing. I'm sure Astros fans are going to be thrilled with this, Josh. My question is, why let them get away to begin with?
Well, I think it just can't. That's the tough part, right? It came down to, are you going to pay a 40-year-old that much money for any big length of time? And that's where it became really, really tough, is, do you want to do that with him? I think circumstances, if they had fallen differently for the Astros this year, the answer is no. It made sense for them not to bring him back, pay him that much money at 40 years old, when they had guys like Christian Javier, they had Luis Castillo, they have Framber Valdez, and all these. They have young pitchers who are coming into their own. Hunter Brown, another guy. And then you see injuries to their pitching staff, and you see guys like Jose Urquidy, they kind of fall off. Framber has an inning here and an inning there that's not quite great. Hunter Brown, he still shows his youth, and he struggles to make it all the way through into 6-7 innings. And so when you don't have that solid innings eater like Justin Verlander, and even some of those guys where you do have them, but they start to get injured, it starts to get really difficult. And I think there are a lot of Astros fans, especially before, when the rumblings of Justin Verlander could be moving to Texas or the Astros are interested in him, it made sense to go out and get a guy like Verlander, who maybe he's not pitching exactly the way he has before, but his ERA is relatively low. His record doesn't look great, but he has pitched relatively well, and he is an innings eater. That's the biggest thing that they need. It's just really tough to see. You're going to see two sides of the baseball on this one. I'm sorry, that's a horrible pun. You're going to see two sides of this from the Astros fan base, where some people are going to look at this and say, oh my gosh, we got Justin Verlander, because they're thinking of Cy Young Justin Verlander and not 40-year-old, not quite as good as he has been Justin Verlander, but still pretty good. But you're going to see the other side who just realizes the Astros just gave up a top 90 prospect in Drew Gilbert, probably the center fielder of the future, even though there's a lot of depth at the center field position with Jake Myers. Chas McCormick he's been batting his way into the conversation in a very, very big way lately. And then you also have some other people in the farm system there, but Drew Gilbert being the guy that they really loved, who was going to be somebody that was going to be a prospect for the future for that team, and to trade him and another prospect away for a 40-year-old pitcher who you don't know what he's going to look like after the season is really, really tough. So in my mind, personally, I'm on the side of, I think there were other innings eaters that would have cost them a lot less than Justin Verlander. And I don't need to sit in my warm and fuzzies bringing Justin Verlander back to this team. So this team better go back to back. They better win this year, or this is going to go down as probably one of the lesser decisions that they've made from an ownership and front office standpoint in quite a few years.
I appreciate the candor, Josh, because a lot of the Houston media that I follow has been acting like they've been pining for this. This is the no-brainer move. You got to make this move. And I appreciate you kind of, they had a chance to re-up this guy. They didn't re-up this guy at the price tag that was out there.
Yep.
And now they've given up something of great value, somewhat in desperation, to do something that many –
I would have rather paid him money up front and not lost a guy like Drew Gilbert. It made sense to trade for Justin Verlander if it was maybe a couple other prospects or even a guy like Jake Myers. Look, I love Jake Myers, but it made more sense with Chas McCormick batting the way he is to give up Jake Myers. And then if you get Mets to eat some of that cash, some of that salary for Justin Verlander, that all makes sense to me. But giving up a guy like Drew Gilbert in the future for essentially like a 1-year rental and a 40-year-old, just not my cup of tea.
Josh Beard, find him on Twitter at Josh Beard Radio, my bud from Houston, Texas. Great catching up with you, pal. Thanks so much for the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. All right. Josh Beard with our Texas A&M, ACC, and SEC team preview series joining us right here today. All right. Up next on the show, folks, a team we all care about is just not right. But the why is a deeper question than initially appears. That's next here on Offsides, the Fan Upstate. Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the fan upstate. John Edward Kruger, no relation to Freddie, joins us right now on the line. John, are you with us?
Hey,
John. Okay, John. Okay, so
Yeah.
John, I need to have a talk with you. Okay, and then I want to hear what you have to say. Okay, but I want to have a talk with you because that's what we do on this show. We're open and honest with everybody. Okay. When we invite you on the show to call in the show, like we are treating you as a guest and we treat you with politeness, right? You are coming into our home, okay? If all you do is trash us when you're not in our home, you're not going to be invited to be a guest in our home any longer. And we have seen, John, a lot of trashing going on social media, on the Spurs Up show, in the YouTube chat. It's one thing to disagree with us respectfully, John, but you have not shown a capacity to be able to do that. So I want to let you know that as long as you are fair and respectful and not spewing nonsense, the invitation always exists for you to come on this show. But if the hate that we're seeing continues, we won't take your call anymore. What do you have to say?
I mean, okay. I mean, that's not really right. I called in today, but
no, I know, but I'm going to talk to you about what I want to talk to you about when you call our show. That's what I want to talk to you about. You know, I have the right to do that. So if you want to be mature and go back and forth and make points, you know, I'm happy to do that with you. But if you trash us every chance you get, and then you expect that you're going to have a platform on this show, you're going to have a rude awakening. That platform isn't going to be there for you. Okay? So just so you and I are clear, that's where I stand. Okay? Now, what did you want to talk about today? Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So there's this thing I've been doing with some like friends of mine. I was want to like, you know, I'm not gonna like go on and on. I'm just like, you all probably saw what I mean. Don't know what I mean by initial picks. Like the last couple of years, me and some of my friends, before the NFL season starts, we go and make our initial NFL division and wildcard picks. But then so there's 17 games, 18 weeks, or right?
Sure.
Yeah, whatever halfway is between the 17 games now. So week 8 and 9, we go back and, you know, change stuff if the teams are doing well, you know, whatever, and make our final picks. Just I want to clarify what initial meant.
Yeah.
So these are my initial picks.
Okay.
I'm still just trying to feel my wild cards, but
okay,
what I've got so far. Buffalo, and you can, you know, give your takes on some of these.
Sure.
Buffalo, Cincinnati, Kansas City, Jacksonville.
Okay, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Kansas City, Jacksonville. Yep. Smart picks, John, because you have taken the best quarterback in each of those divisions. And the last 10 years, 82% of divisions have been won by the team that has the best quarterback. So those are very, very good divisional picks. I can't tell you that my picks would be any different than yours. How about the NFC?
Okay, division, I would go Philly, New Orleans, San Francisco, and Detroit. Like I said at the end of last year, Detroit could make the playoffs next season, which is upcoming.
Okay. So the $1 million question is Philly, yes. New Orleans, yes. The two wildcard divisions are the NFC North and the NFC West. Who is the best quarterback in the NFC North? It might be Kirk Cousins, right? But the Lions are the favorite to win that division. San Francisco's got the best roster in the NFL. Does Brock Purdy mean they have the best quarterback in that division? I don't think so. But remember, I said 82%, right? So the closest to that would be 7 out of 8 divisions would be won by the team with the best quarterback. I don't think Brock Purdy is the best QB in the NFC West, but you get 1 out of 8 divisions not to make that pick. I'm going to agree with every pick you made except the NFC North, where I still think Kirk Cousins is going to be the best quarterback, or Justin Fields, an emerging Justin Fields. So I'd go Chicago or Minnesota before I go Detroit. That'd be my only difference, though. I thought you did a pretty solid job there.
I get that. It's just Minnesota last year here's my whole thing on Minnesota. I know they still got some good players, but can you count on Minnesota to win the close games again? Like, that's my whole thing. And I just think the way Detroit built their team, they may not have the best quarterback, but like San Francisco, it's, what's around, let's say, Purdy and Goff, because Goff had a great year last year.
Yeah, no, he did. He did. John, I appreciate the call, man. I hope that before let's hang on just 1 second, Diesel. I hope, John, that the peace offering from us to you is accepted. Okay, we appreciate your call.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah,
Like one more thing
Sure.
on like the whole Beamer Muschamp thing.
Sure.
Like, I think my whole thing is when people keep bringing up the comparison between Muschamp and Beamer is me as a fan. I'm trying to, and I think I've moved on, and I'm trying to move on from that horrible era of.
So
program.
right. But John, I understand that. But hear me out. Fans are short for fanatics, right? They're crazy about their teams. And the fans of the Gamecocks are floating a false narrative that Beamer is far above and beyond Muschamp at this point. The one-loss record says he's not. The recruiting says he's not. Now, he could very well be, John. I'm not predicting that he won't be ahead of Muschamp. I think he will. My scale of 1 to 10 score, Spurrier was a 10 for you guys. Beamer looks to be about a 7, and Muschamp was about a 4. But Beamer's going to have to produce, and there's always big picture comparisons to be made. John, I appreciate the politeness of your phone call. I'd like to see that on all the platforms. Thank you for the call, John Edward Kruger. We appreciate his call and his division picks. I thought the division picks were pretty solid. I agree with him on 7 out of 8. Coming up next on the show, it's a team we all care about that's got major issues, and the problems are deeper than they initially appear. That's next here on Offsides, the Fan Upstate. So now the U.S. has advanced to the final 16. Top 2 teams in every group advance. Congratulations, you now get to play the number 3 team in the world, Sweden, who is actually playing like a top 3 team in the world, unlike us, right? Very unlikely we get by Sweden, in my opinion. And if we do, we play the team perhaps that is playing the best in the entire tournament so far, Japan. Japan is playing soccer like a surgeon, precise and deadly. So what the hell is going on with our women's national team? Is this just tactics? Why do they look sloppy? Why are they not scoring goals? You know, it's the first time ever, Diesel, in 3 games, we have not won at least 2 of our 3 group games. In 3 games, we have 1 win. It's only the second time ever that we didn't win our group outright. Netherlands won, we did not. And it was none other than Carly Lloyd, all right, who addressed this today. And she saw something after the game that made her sick as a former World Cup champion when she watched the behavior of her former team after the game.
Sorry, guys, we got a white spinning wheel of death.
That's my bad. I'll take that. So we check on the carpro.com text line. And a texter says, let's see here.
I got it.
Okay. Here's Carly Lloyd.
Images we should be expecting to see from a team that survived Portugal and survived to get to the round of 16. I appreciate them taking care of the fans, but let me tell you, Carly Lloyd's butt would be back in the locker room kicking things, throwing things.
I have never witnessed, and just seeing these images for the first time right now on the desk, I've never witnessed something like that. There's a difference between being respectful of the fans and saying hello to your family, but to be dancing, to be smiling. I mean, the player of the match was that post. You're lucky to not be going home right now.
The player of the match was the post that the Portugal breakaway didn't score, right? You're lucky not to be going home. What were the ladies doing that bothered Carly Lloyd so much? Dancing, pictures with the fans, celebrating. It's a bunch of nonsense. And I want to let you guys know this because this is a bigger deal, okay? This is a bigger deal. And Diesel, here's what I want to do. I want to push the top 5 at 5 back to 5:15 today. I want to have this conversation in the next segment. We've got more to get to in this one. But Carly Lloyd said, I went on to listen to her, and she said something that stuck with me, and it's a generational question. It's not a soccer question. She said, around 2020, what you get when you win became more important than winning itself to the girls on the team. Everything that comes with winning became more important than winning itself. The fame, the money, the adulation, the endorsements, the likes, the retweets. She said, and it's disgusting. And she says, and I remember her saying this a couple years ago. And I said, oh, dear God, this is not going to be good because I think she's right. And what are we seeing right now? We're seeing a team that is playing as a bunch of individuals. We are not seeing a team that is playing cohesively. We're seeing a bunch of people trying to go one-on-one. We're not seeing creative play or any of this stuff. And we're seeing a bunch of individual stars on American teams.
Have they tried Ted Lasso's Total Football?
They need to. How about Fred McGriff's hitting instructions way back in the day? Remember those? The old videos? So anyway, folks, I went back and I looked at this, right? And I looked at the different generations because what Carly Lloyd is saying is there's a culture issue on this team that is a generational issue on this team. She said her generation cared the most about winning. This generation cares the most about, everything that comes when you win. They value that more than winning itself. So you got the silent generation, people born 1928 to 1945. You've got the baby boomer generation, born 1946 to 1964. Our parents, most of our parents are in the baby boomer generation. We have Generation X, which is my generation, 65 to 1980. We have millennials born 1981 to 1996, Generation Z born 1996 to 2012, and Generation Alpha born 2013 to 2025. Most of the girls on our team, right, were born they're either older millennials if they're in their 30s, or they were born in Generation Z. And so my observation, folks, is this. If you are 40 or above, right, I am, Carly Lloyd is, you have zero patience for stuff like this. And you heard what Carly Lloyd had to say. Like, there's no way in hell she'd be caught dancing and celebrating when her team almost got knocked out of the World Cup by someone that shouldn't even be on the same field with them. That's the attitude of 40 and above. Those in their 30s are unfortunately caught in between. They see the sides. They see the side that the 20-year-old generation is making, and they're caught in between the 40-year-olds who say, toughen up, get with the program, right? That generation are the Diesels, the Rob Browns, right? I'm 40 and above. Alonzo's 40 and above. The late 30s, I feel bad for, because it's like I don't know what side they're closer to. And then you have the 20-year-old side, the 20-somethings, who, folks, I thank God every day that I met my wife, because I thank God every day that I'm not a 20-something myself and dating, because, these people are all about themselves. They're all about themselves. The dating realm, in the 20s, it's a bunch of people all about themselves. And I can't handle it. It's a generational problem that we're seeing now come to roost in our women's professional team. We'll continue this conversation, what to do about it. Our women's team is being struck by stardom, and it has a generational culture issue they need to address, and we'll tackle that next here on Offsides. What's good, everybody? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Thanks to everyone in the YouTube chat today. Thanks to everyone contributing on the carpro.com text line. We value and appreciate you so much. So, folks, Carly Lloyd, best described. I want to play this clip if it'll work for us, Diesel, one more time. Carly Lloyd was beside herself as the U.S. team, number one ranked in the world, played the 21st ranked team in the world, Portugal, couldn't score a goal against them, and had to hang on for a tie that allowed us to advance. If Portugal had beaten us, they would have advanced, and in stoppage time on a breakaway, Portugal got one by our keeper and hit the post. After a game that the U.S. should have had no trouble with to barely survive and advance, Carly Lloyd, former U.S. women's national team great, a surefire Hall of Famer, she made that kick from like midfield against Japan back in, I believe it was the 2014 or 2015 Women's World Cup. She was beside herself. And I want you to listen to how she reacted to the players of today celebrating an awful performance.
I have never witnessed, and just seeing these images for the first time right now on the desk, I have never witnessed something like that. There's a difference between being respectful of the fans and saying hello to your family, but to be dancing, to be smiling. I mean, the player of the match was that post. You're lucky to not be going home right now.
So we hear elder statesmen in the NBA say this all the time. Hey, man, when I played, we hated our opponents. You would never catch me having dinner with Larry Bird. Players today love their opponents, go out to dinner with their opponents, hug their opponents, exchange jerseys with their opponents. And so guys like me, 40 years old plus, sound like, hey, get off my lawn guy, grumpy old man. That's what we sound like. Guys like Diesel and Rob, I feel like are kind of like caught in between.
No, don't put me in the same category with Rob on that. Rob is 100% pro player, pro broing out with other players in the league. Not me. That's not me.
But I think you guys are in the same realm age-wise, Diesel.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't put us in the same mentality standpoint.
Gotcha, but bring me into how that works for you, Diesel, because it does seem like that to me, right? Like 20-somethings are very love everybody. I'm all about building my brand. 40-somethings are very principle-oriented.
Yeah.
What is it like to be the generation in between?
Well, this is right now we have a culture of collaboration with other big name stars, whether it be in the online media space, whether it be with endorsement opportunities, things like that. So people, you got to think, fans have more access to athletes than they've ever had.
Right.
And those athletes also have the ability to speak to each other in ways that athletes in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s didn't have either. You know, guys, Jimmy Butler can respond directly to something LeBron James said. He can like and retweet his tweets. He can join in with him on campaigns online to raise money for different things. I'm not saying he actually did that. I'm just proving a point here. So we live in a more collaborative atmosphere. We also live in the world, Mark, as you know full well, where anything you say can and will be used against you in perpetuity online. So we also got a bunch of people who don't want to say anything bad about other stars because they don't want the massive fandoms behind those stars coming after them constantly. I've always thought that mentality-wise, I'm sort of Switzerland in this, but leaning more towards the old school way of thinking. These are your competition. You're supposed to beat them. That is the point of playing on the same field as them, is to go out there and beat them.
Yeah, and that is very much where I'm at, right? Millennials are people right now that are between the ages of 27 and 42. Those are millennials. The problem is that many on our team are in Generation Z, born between 1996 and 2012. Okay. So millennials right now are between the ages of 11 and 26. And I think that is the very generation that Carly Lloyd has a problem with. So,
I've heard, Mark, my generation be reclassified as zillennials with an X, the generation that remembers life before the internet being everywhere, remembers life before social media being everywhere. You know, Facebook didn't exist until I was in college. I mean, I think it existed before, but like I didn't have it until I was in college. So I learned to live life without social media. It is not everything to me. But people younger than me grew up with social media everywhere all day. Everything they see is postable. Everything that happens to them is content, no matter whether it's good or bad, embarrassing or fantastic. Everything is content to them. I didn't grow up that way. So that's why people who are in that 37 to like 40, 41, 42 range are referred to as zillennials with an X, because we lean a little bit more Gen X mentality wise.
what I did today, ladies and gentlemen, and I appreciate that explanation, and I'm curious how you guys would solve what ails this, because I've been watching Carly Lloyd, who's an analyst now of the World Cup, getting increasingly pissed off every single game. And she's like, where is the leadership? Where is the person on the team that's willing to kick some ass and say the BS stops here? Well, it doesn't exist in this era, right? It doesn't exist. It fails. It doesn't exist at all. Texter says, let's see. It's crazy to think about how far we have fallen. America used to be about greatness and winning. Now we celebrate a tie against a nobody. How disgusting. Amen, Texter. Amen. Texter says, I'm with you, Mark. They were 5 inches from losing. What were you happy about? I would have been stunned as a former baseball player. That comes from J.D. Wyatt. Texter says, I feel like I'm right in between the mechanical and technology age. So fortunately, I'm adaptable to both. Maybe that's it. You know, maybe like 30-somethings is the best place to be. Madcraft says, I'm not 30, and it pissed me off. Number 1 in the world? Yeah, okay. Time to start proving that. So what I did, ladies and gentlemen, and I thought this would be interesting because this is very much a societal and culture quandary, right? A generational quandary. I went and I found like an unbiased source online that would give us the strengths and weaknesses of each generation on the whole, okay? So for us, we've got all these generations listening to us right now. We've got the baby boomer, Generation X, millennials, Generation Z, and Generation Alpha. So this is not my own interpretation. This was an unbiased online source's interpretation. So if you would allow me to do this, guys, I will just read for a few minutes here. Baby boomers. These are people right now born between 1946 and 1964. They are between the ages of 59 and 76. 59 and 76. Okay. Some of you guys certainly are parents, right? Baby boomers. Their strengths are characterized as being workaholics who relish long weeks and overtime, more committed to their roles than any other generation. Baby boomers are considered good team players, with 53% of organizations saying they work well with others. The professionals in this generation are regarded as making excellent mentors to their colleagues and juniors in the organization. The weaknesses of baby boomers are this generation has a preference for structure and discipline and are less inclined to welcome change. Boomers are competitive, so they need recognition and rewards to keep them motivated to achieve more. Baby boomers are regarded as the least tech-savvy of all generations, prohibiting their ability to keep up with developments. Strengths and weaknesses of our parents. Here is my generation, Generation X, born between 1965 and 1980. Now, I'm 46 years of age. This generation is for people between the ages of 42 and 58. I'm 46, so I am one of the youngest Generation Xers, but I've been told I'm an old soul. So here we go. Generation Xers. The majority of organizations, 70% today, believe Gen X are the best overall workers. These professionals are committed to juggling work with family time and favor work-life balance in an organization. Generation X is considered to be the biggest revenue generators overall. The weaknesses of my generation: less than 40% of Gen Xers are satisfied with the senior management in their organization. This generation is less inclined to say something if they disagree with management than their successive generations. And finally, Generation X values being able to do things quickly and are less inclined to spend hours of overtime completing something perfectly. That is very, very true. Very, very true. Millennials, people that are the age right now of, 27 to 42. 27 to 42. Diesel, tell me how accurate this is.
Okay.
The strengths of all generations currently featuring in the workforce, millennials are considered the most independent workers. They're concerned with ethics and the social responsibility of the organization they work for. They have grown up sourcing information they need to be left to create their own processes rather than being told exactly what to do. Accurate?
Yeah, I'd say that's fairly accurate.
Weaknesses. Due to their independent nature, millennials are not as interested in teamwork as other generations. Millennials do not have as strong a work ethic, with an average of 38.8 hours spent at work a week compared to previous generations who both average above 40 hours. This generation is impatient when it comes to career growth. 49% are likely to leave before 2 years if they feel their skills are not being developed.
Yeah, I'd say that's true. I think a lot of millennials feel like they are more tech savvy than the Gen Xers who are their bosses, and they are not patient enough to wait for somebody who they feel is not as savvy as them to critique their work, to instruct them.
And then finally, we've got Generation Z. And this, I think, is the generation that Carly Lloyd has a problem with, right? And this is the generation that, like, the millennials need to be the peacemaker between my generation, Generation X, and this generation, Generation Z, right? We need the millennials to be the peacemaker between our generations. Otherwise, we just butt heads all the time. Generation Z, the strengths are the most tech competent of any generation. Members of Gen Z are able to pick up new developments quicker than any other employees. This generation is particularly ambitious, with 2/3 of Generation Z saying their goal in life is to make it to the top of their profession. Generation Z are natural entrepreneurs, with 72% wanting to start their own business and hire people. Described as the always-on generation, Gen Z are able to multitask unlike any other generation, using up to 5 screens at once. Weaknesses of Generation Z. Generation Z are regarded as more cynical. Oh, God, what were we just talking about yesterday? They're more cynical than their predecessors, favoring a realistic outlook over the idealism. Generation Z does not know much about a time before social media and easily accessible tech. This can make them very reliant on technology to solve problems. Finally, Generation Z is known to avoid conflict and confrontation. They've never been more tech savvy. They've never been less able to resolve issues within the workplace.
You know, it's interesting, hearing the descriptors of these generations. I'm thinking about it from a tech standpoint. Gen Xers invented some of the technology that we still use today. Millennials perfected the technology that we still use today, and Gen Zers are basking in the afterglow of knowing nothing but this perfected technology. I'm thinking about any kind of project that you do at work, right? It used to take a whole team to put something together. Well, let's talk about a marketing campaign. Somebody's got to write the script. Somebody's got to record the audio. Somebody's got to produce the images. Somebody's got to produce the video. Well, that used to take a whole team of people, right? It used to take an entire marketing department to come up with an ad campaign for a widget. Well, millennials figured out, here's how we can make the technology user-friendly so that it takes fewer people to accomplish all of those things. Gen Zers have just known doing it all themselves. They know how to do all of it themselves, and they know how to do it quickly, and they have the technology to do it quickly because millennials set that up for them.
You're right.
And the problem is that now we have a lot of management and a lot of companies who expect everyone to be able to do everything, which is why how many people out there would tell you that in their profession, one person is being asked to do 2, 3, 4 people's jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, we're having that. How many hats do we all wear here? But the thing that I worry about the most, guys, is like, to me, being a leader involves being able and willing to have the uncomfortable conversations, right? Like, to be a leader, you've got to be able to call a spade a spade. And because we're in the texting generation now, right? Whenever somebody sends you a text you don't like, you just don't respond. That's what people do. And so when you hear CEOs say, we've never had a college workforce that's coming out of school right now that has been more tech savvy, but never less able to communicate and solve workplace issues and, have the necessary confrontations to build consensus and move forward as a unit. We're seeing that same damn thing with a women's national team.
It's really easy to bail on things now. It's way too easy to bail because you could just go start another thing somewhere else.
Yeah, like this U.S. team needs players. They're going to hold the other players on the team accountable. But because it's more comfortable just to dance and just to celebrate and just to high five and all this nonsense, you don't have the leadership in place to win it all. I don't know if the problem is that the European leagues now, all these players, right? There's a girls Manchester United, there's a girls Barcelona. I don't know if it's just like, now they have all the advantages that their men do over our men, but their league seems to be better than our American league, and they're kicking our butts. And I'm here to tell you, folks, as of this moment, as of right now, I do not know if we're ever going to win a Women's World Cup again.
Well, I do want to put this in the back of your mind, and everybody who always wants to trash on younger generations than their own. That paradigm has been true for a century. I can't think about what life was like back in the 1800s. I just don't know. But the generation that grew up living through World War I and the Great Depression looked at the generation that came after World War II, the baby boomers, like they had it easy. They were ungrateful. And then that generation looked at the generation after them like they had it easy and they were ungrateful. And then that generation looked at the generation after them like they had it easy and they were ungrateful. That is a fact. Every single generation looks down on the generation before them. And they all think that the generations that come after them are lazy and ungrateful and don't work hard. It's just because they're different from you and they're growing up in different circumstances from you. And people change as they age. So somebody who is a footloose, fancy-free, 20-year-old is not going to be that exact same person when they're 30, when they're 40, when they're 50. Their mindsets change. A lot of people tend to become more conservative as they age.
So I would say, Diesel, I understand that, right? I do think there are some different identities to the different generations that are worth pointing out. And I will tell you this about my generation, Generation X, which is not flattering about my generation. I believe my generation is the first generation that didn't give our kids a better life on average. Like on average. The baby boomers did the best job of giving their kids, us, a better life, right? Our parents did the best job of that. I don't think our generation has raised that bar. My generation, Generation X, by and large. All right, my friends, we got a lot of texts coming in on the carpro.com text line. We've got the top 5 at 5. Coming your way next. Appreciate the 1 segment delay. There was a lot to unpack there on the women's national team that we had to get to with you. That's next here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate.
Stream, it's been a lot of fun again today. Thank you for indulging that little extra segment there.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much, man. I love it. We love the debate. We love seeing this. We're having a blast watching you guys mix it up in here, man. I noticed today you guys, like, normally it's kind of kumbaya in here, but today it was really like you guys were duking it out, and we got a kick out of
Love
it.
it.
So thank you guys so much, man. We love you to pieces. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening. Bring some of this conversation over to the text line as well. We want to keep that going. Thanks a lot, guys.